I think this internal approach of, comparing with what we did with respect to solar and wind, which we did an amazing job, I think. We are
Yes.
the third largest in the space, as you
And
pointed out.
set to grow.
And set to grow 3 times
Yes.
over. So, and from 15 gigawatts, I think a couple of years ago, year on year, we're looking at 50 gigawatts year on year as we go, and perhaps more. So, I think the targets keep surprising us in a positive way and give us work to do every day. But the important thing is to our mindset really, and as our Prime Minister has rightly pointed out, we're looking at one world, one sun, and one earth, etc. We really need to be mindful of the fact that we're competing with the world at large.
Right.
So the IRA in the US is offering subsidies on green hydrogen, which are 3 times that of what we are doing in India. So we really have to keep our eye on the ball with respect to what we are doing in India with respect to the rest of the world. It's not an internal game as much as it's an international game. It is a global energy transition and a climate emergency.
Okay, Vaishali, 1 second, hold on. We've got 3 minutes left. We've got 2.5 minutes left. So I'm going to interrupt you to state in 30 seconds your expectations, and I'll try and go through the panel.
Let me just pick up the cue from...
No, you've got 30 seconds. You have to give us 2 budget expectations.
Rationalization of tax rates to make sure that there is more disposable income. We haven't seen increase in threshold for last several years. And 2, a roadmap for bringing a revenue neutral GST rate. It's not a part of the budget exercise, but it could be a part of the agenda for the next GST Council or the next GST Council, such that you increase consumption. So it's a consumption story.
2 budget expectations.
Definite measures to increase overseas investor interest, including things which will help the sector that Vaishali was talking about, extension of tax benefits for sovereign and pension funds for investing in India in the infrastructure space. So that is one. Second, borrow the Ishopnishad quote from the economic survey. The government should give up a little bit of its power and let the private sector work. And I do want to see a directional trend towards that. That's also something which fits in with the philosophy of this government.
So you literally have 30 seconds left.
Okay,
So Vaishali, start.
I'll take less than 30 seconds
Okay.
just to, I think we just need to boost what we are doing and to accelerate, I think, our targets to get to a Viksit Bharat, to build a green sort of economy as we move along. Please don't forget women. We need an inclusive growth. So I have to make that point, given that my colleagues here on the panel sometimes forget to do that.
No, and in terms of realizing our demographic dividend, it's something that's essential. It's a no-brainer. Without a greater participation of women at our economy, and so none of these economic goals we have will ever work out. 2 points quickly, sir.
So,
it's already 11 o'clock.
So I would say
you're eating into the finance minister's time, but she's not started. Go ahead.
Build 100 gigawatt of transmission network if they want to succeed and plan the capex for that. 15% at least capex increase on entire infrastructure spend. And third area is that women-owned, women-operated company should have an income tax of 15%. So that there is an incentive for families and the whole social structure to encourage them.
All right, well, it's 11 o'clock. House proceedings shortly. That's Lok Sabha TV that you see in the box in the center. So I wonder if Nirmala Sitharaman, who is very much a pro at this by now, has any sort of sense of being a little nervous. But that's perhaps not the case. Will this be a political budget? Will it be a budget in continuity? Will it be a budget that really pushes growth? Will private consumption be really, really stepped up? We've got the speaker come out right now, and we're going to cross over now and wait for the finance minister to present the Union Budget of India 2024.
माननीय सदस्यगण, मुझे अपनी ओर से तथा सदन के माननीय सदस्यों की ओर से अंतर संसदीय संघ आईपीयू की प्रेसिडेंट और तंजानिया संयुक्त गणराज्य की नेशनल असेंबली की अध्यक्ष माननीय डॉक्टर तुलिया एक्सन का स्वागत करते हुए अत्यंत प्रसन्नता हो रही है। वे हमारी सम्मानित अतिथि के रूप में भारत की आधिकारिक यात्रा पर आई है। ये हमारे लिए खुशी की बात है कि डॉक्टर एक्शन बजट सत्र को देखने के लिए यहाँ उपस्थित है। माननीय डॉक्टर तुल्या एक्शन शुक्रवार दिनांक 19 जुलाई 2024 को भारत पहुंची। उन्होंने 21 जुलाई 2024 को आगरा का भ्रमण किया और इस समय वह विशेष बॉक्स में आसीन है। हम भारत में उनके सुखद और सफल प्रवास की कामना करते हैं। हम अंतर संसदीय संघ के प्रेसिडेंट के रूप में उनकी भूमिका के लिए सफलता की भी कामना करते हैं। उनके माध्यम से हम तंजानिया गणराज्य की संसद के सदस्यों, तंजानिया की सरकार तथा वहाँ की मित्र जनता को बधाई और शुभकामनाएं देते हैं। मान्य सदस्यगण, जैसा कि आपको समाचार भाग 2 के माध्यम से पहले ही सूचित किया जा चुका है कि माननीय वित्त मंत्री जी के बजट भाषण की प्रतियां हार्ड कॉपी के रूप में उपलब्ध कराई जाएगी। अतः बजट प्रस्तुत हो जाने के पश्चात माननीय सदस्य कृपया बजट भाषण की अपनी प्रति प्रकाशन काउंटर से प्राप्त कर लें। आपको ये भी सूचित किया जाता है कि माननीय मंत्री द्वारा बजट प्रस्तुत किए जाने के पश्चात बजट की प्रतियां आपको मेंबर्स पोर्टल के माध्यम से भी उपलब्ध करा दी जाएगी। माननीय वित्त मंत्री श्रीमती निर्मला सीतारमण।
Honorable Speaker, I present the budget for 24-25. Introduction. The people of India have reposed their faith in the government led by Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi and re-elected it for a historic third term under his leadership. We are grateful for their support, faith, and trust in our policies. We are determined to ensure that all Indians, regardless of religion, caste, gender, and age, make substantial progress in realizing their life goals and aspirations. Global context. The global economy, while performing better than expected, is still in the grip of policy uncertainties. Elevated asset prices, political uncertainties, and shipping disruptions continue to pose significant downside risks for growth and upside risks to inflation. In this context, India's economic growth continues to be the shining exception and will remain so in the years ahead. India's inflation continues to be low, stable, and moving towards the 4% target. Core inflation, that is non-food and non-fuel, currently is 3.1%. Steps are being taken to ensure supplies of perishable goods reach markets adequately. Interim budget. As mentioned in the interim budget, we need to focus on 4 major castes, namely the Garib, Mahilaye, Yuva, and Annadata, the poor, women, youth, and the farmer. For Annadata, we announced higher minimum support prices a month ago for all major crops, delivering on the promise of at least a 50% margin over costs. Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana was extended for 5 years, benefiting more than 80 crore people. Administrative actions for approval and implementation of various schemes announced in the interim budget are well underway. The required allocations have been made. Budget theme. Turning attention to the full year and beyond in this budget, we particularly focus on employment, skilling, MSMEs, and the middle class. I'm happy to announce the Prime Minister's package of 5 schemes and initiatives to facilitate employment, skilling, and other opportunities for 4.1 crore youth over a 5-year period, with a central outlay of 2 lakh crore rupees. I will speak about them shortly, while more details may be seen in the annexure. This year, I've made a provision of 1.48 lakh rupees, 1.48 lakh crore rupees for education, employment, and skilling. Budget priorities. The people have given a unique opportunity to our government to take the country on the path of strong development and an all-round prosperity. In the interim budget, we promised to present a detailed roadmap for our pursuit of Vikasit Bharat. In line with the strategy set out in the interim budget, this budget envisages sustained efforts on the following 9 priorities for generating ample opportunities for all. Number 1, productivity and resilience in agriculture. Number 2, employment and skilling. Number 3, inclusive human resource development and social justice. 4, manufacturing and services. 5, urban development. 6, energy security. 7, infrastructure. 8, innovation, research and development. And 9, next generation reforms. Subsequent budgets will build on these and add more priorities and actions. A more detailed formulation will be carried out as part of the economic policy framework, about which I will speak later in this speech. This budget details some of the specific actions to be initiated in the current year towards fulfillment of these priorities, with potential for transformative changes. The budget also covers some of the previously made announcements with intent to strengthen them and step up their implementation for expediting our journey towards the goal of Vikasit Bharat. Priority 1, productivity and resilience in agriculture. Transforming agricultural research. Our government will undertake a comprehensive review of the agricultural research setup to bring the focus on raising productivity and developing climate-resilient varieties. Funding will be provided in challenge mode, including to the private sector. Domain experts, both from the government and outside, will oversee the conduct of such research. Release of new varieties. New 109 high-yielding and climate-resilient varieties of 32 field and horticultural crops will be released for cultivation by farmers. Natural farming. In the next 2 years, 1 crore farmers across the country will be initiated into natural farming, supported by certification and branding. Implementation will be through scientific institutions and willing gram panchayats. 10,000 need-based bio-input resource centers will be established. Missions for pulses and oilseeds. For achieving self-sufficiency in pulses and oilseeds, We will strengthen their production, storage, and marketing. As announced in the interim budget, a strategy is being put in place to achieve Atmanirbharta for oil seeds such as mustard, groundnut, sesame, soybean, and sunflower. Vegetable production and supply chains. Large-scale clusters for vegetable production will be developed closer to major consumption centers. We will promote farmer-producer organizations, cooperatives, and startups for vegetable supply chains, including for collection and storage and marketing. Digital public infrastructure for agriculture. Buoyed by the success of the pilot project, our government, in partnership with the states, will facilitate the implementation of the digital public infrastructure in agriculture for coverage of farmers and their lands in 3 years. During this year, digital crop survey for Kharif using the DPI will be taken up in 400 districts. The details of 6 crore farmers and their lands will be brought into the farmer and land registries. Further, the issuance of Jan Samarth based Kisan credit cards will be enabled in 5 states. Shrimp production and export. Financial support for setting up a network of nucleus breeding centers for shrimp brood stocks will be provided. Financing for shrimp farming, processing, and export will be facilitated through NABARD. National cooperation policy. Our government will bring out a national cooperation policy for systematic, orderly, and all-round development of the cooperative sector, fast-tracking growth of rural economy and generation of employment opportunities on a large scale will be the policy goal. This year, I have made a provision of 1.52 lakh crore rupees for agriculture and allied sectors. Priority 2, employment and skilling. Employment-linked incentive. Our government will implement following 3 schemes for employment-linked incentive as part of the Prime Minister's package. These will be based on enrollment in the EPFO and focus on recognition of first-time employees and support to employees and employers. Scheme A, first-timers. This scheme will provide 1 month wage to all persons newly entering the workforce in all formal sectors. Direct benefit transfer of 1 month's salary in 3 installments to first-time employees as registered in the EPFO will be up to 15,000 rupees. The eligibility limit will be a salary of 1 lakh per month. The scheme is expected to benefit 210 lakh youths. Scheme B, job creation in manufacturing. This scheme will incentivize additional employment in the manufacturing sector linked to the employment of first-time employees. An incentive will be provided at specified scale directly both to the employee and the employer with respect to the EPFO contribution in the first 4 years of employment. The scheme is expected to benefit 30 lakh youth entering employment and their employers. Scheme C, support to employers. This employer-focused scheme will cover additional employment in all sectors. All additional employment within a salary of 1 lakh rupee per month will be counted. The government will reimburse to employers up to 3,000 rupees per month for 2 years towards the EPFO contribution for each additional employee. The scheme is expected to incentivize additional employment of 50 lakh persons. Participation of women in the workforce. We will facilitate higher participation of women in the workforce through setting up of working women hostels in collaboration with industry and establishing creches. In addition, the partnership will seek to organize women-specific skilling programs and promotion of market access for women SHG enterprises. Skilling program. I'm happy to announce a new centrally sponsored scheme as the fourth scheme under the Prime Minister's package for skilling in collaboration with state governments and industry. 20 lakh youth will be skilled over a 5-year period. 1,000 industrial training institutes will be upgraded in hub and spoke arrangements with outcome orientation. Course content and design will be aligned to the skill needs of industry, and new courses will be introduced for emerging needs. Skilling loans. The model skill loan scheme will be revised to facilitate loans up to 7.5 lakh rupees with a guarantee from a government-promoted fund. This measure is expected to help 25,000 students every year. Education loans. For helping our youth who have not been eligible for any benefit under government schemes and policies, I am happy to announce a financial support for loans up to 10 lakh rupees for higher education in domestic institutions. E-vouchers for this purpose. E-vouchers for this purpose will be given directly to 1 lakh students every year for annual interest subvention of 3% of the loan amount. Priority 3, inclusive human resource development and social justice, saturation approach. Our government is committed to all-round, all-pervasive and all-inclusive development of people, particularly farmers, youth, women, and the poor. For achieving social justice comprehensively, the saturation approach of covering all eligible people through various programs, including those for education and health, will be adopted to empower them by improving their capabilities. Implementation of schemes meant for supporting economic activities by craftsmen, artisans, self-help groups, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, and women entrepreneurs and street vendors such as the PM Vishwakarma, PM Swanidhi, National Livelihood Missions, and Stand Up India will be stepped up. Purvodaya. The states in the eastern part of the country are rich in endowments and have strong cultural traditions. We will formulate a plan, Purvodaya, for the all-round development of the eastern region of the country, covering Bihar, Jharkhand, West Bengal, Odisha, and Andhra Pradesh. This will cover human resource development, infrastructure, and generation of economic opportunities to make the region an engine to attain Vikasit Bharat. On the Amritsar-Kolkata Industrial Corridor, we will support development of an industrial node at Gaya. This corridor will catalyze industrial development of the eastern region. The industrial node at Gaya will also be a good model for developing our ancient centers of cultural importance into future centers of modern economy. This model shall showcase Vikas B, Virasat B in a growth trajectory. We will also support development of road connectivity projects, namely 1. Patna-Purnia Expressway, 2. Buxar-Bhagalpur Expressway, 3. Bodh Gaya, Rajgir, Vaishali and Darbhanga spurs, and 4. Additional 2-lane bridge over River Ganga at Buxar at a total cost of 26,000 crore rupees. Power projects, including setting up of a new 2,400 megawatt power plant at Pir Painti, will be taken up at a cost of 21,400 crore rupees. New airports, medical colleges, and sports infrastructure in Bihar will be constructed. An additional allocation to support capital investments will be provided. The requests of Bihar government for external assistance from multilateral development banks will be expedited. Andhra Pradesh Reorganization Act. Our government has made concerted efforts to fulfill the commitments in Andhra Pradesh Reorganization Act. Recognizing the state's need for the capital, recognizing the state's need for a capital, we will facilitate special financial support through multilateral development agencies. In the current financial year, 15,000 crore rupees will be arranged with additional amounts in future years. Our government is fully committed to financing and early completion of the Polavaram irrigation project, which is the lifeline for Andhra Pradesh and its farmers. This will facilitate our country's food security as well. Under the Andhra Pradesh Reorganization Act, for promoting industrial development, funds will be provided for essential infrastructure such as water, power, railways, and roads. In Kopparthi node on the Visakhapatnam-Chennai Industrial Corridor and Varavakal node on the Hyderabad-Bangalore Industrial Corridor. An additional allocation will be provided this year towards capital investment for economic growth. Grants for backward regions of Rayalaseema, Prakasham, North Coastal Andhra, as stated in the Act, will be provided. PM Awas Yojana. 3 crore additional houses under the PM Awas Yojana in rural and urban areas in the country have been announced, for which the necessary allocations are being made. Women-led development. For promoting women-led development, the budget carries an allocation of more than 3 lakh crore for schemes benefiting women and girls. This signals our government's commitment for enhancing women's role in economic development. Pradhan Mantri Janjatiya Unnat Gram Abhiyan. For improving the socio-economic condition of tribal communities, we will launch the Pradhan Mantri Janjatiya Unnat Gram Abhiyan by adopting saturation coverage for tribal families in tribal majority villages and aspirational districts. This will cover 63,000 villages, benefiting 5 crore tribal people. Bank branches in northeastern region. More than 100 branches of India Post Payment Bank will be set up in the northeast region to expand the banking services. This year, I have made a provision of 2.66 lakh crore rupees for rural development, including rural infrastructure. Priority 4, manufacturing and services, support for promotion of MSMEs. This budget provides special attention to MSMEs and manufacturing, particularly labor-intensive manufacturing. We have formulated a package covering financing, regulatory changes, and technology support for MSMEs to help them grow and also compete globally, as mentioned in the interim budget. I am happy to announce the following specific measures. Credit guarantee scheme for MSMEs in the manufacturing sector. For facilitating term loans to MSMEs for purchase of machinery and equipment without collateral or third-party guarantee, a credit guarantee scheme will be introduced. The scheme will operate on pooling of credit risks of such MSMEs. A separately constituted self-financing guarantee fund will provide to each applicant guarantee cover up to 100 crore rupees, while the loan amount may be larger. The borrower will have to provide an upfront guarantee fee and an annual guarantee fee on the reducing loan balance. New assessment model for MSME credit. Public sector banks will build their own in-house capability to assess MSMEs for credit instead of relying on external assessment. They will also take a lead in developing or getting developed a new credit assessment model based on the scoring of digital footprints of the MSMEs in the economy. This is expected to be a significant improvement over the traditional assessment of credit eligibility based only on asset or turnover criteria. That will also cover MSMEs without a formal accounting system. Credit support to MSMEs during stress period. I'm happy to announce a new mechanism for facilitating continuation of bank credit to MSMEs during their stress period while being in special mention account, SMA stage, for reasons beyond their control. MSMEs need credit to continue their business and to avoid getting into the NPA stage. Credit availability will be supported through a guarantee from a government-promoted fund. Mudra loans. The limit of Mudra loans will be enhanced to 20 lakh from the current 10 lakh for those entrepreneurs who have availed and successfully repaid previous loans under the Tarun category. Enhanced scope for mandatory onboarding in TREDS. For facilitating MSMEs to unlock their working capital by converting their trade receivables into cash, I propose to reduce the turnover threshold of buyers for mandatory onboarding on the TREADS platform from rupees 500 crore to 250 crore rupees. This measure will bring 22 more CPSCs and 7,000 more companies onto the platform. Medium enterprises will also be included in the scope of the suppliers. SIDBI branches in MSME clusters. SIDBI will open new branches to expand its reach to serve all major MSME clusters within 3 years and provide direct credit to them. With the opening of 24 such branches this year, the service coverage will expand to 168 out of 242 major clusters. MSME units for food irradiation, quality and safety testing. Financial support for setting up of 50 multi-product food irradiation units in the MSME sector will be provided. Setting up of 100 food quality and safety testing labs with NABL accreditation will be facilitated. E-commerce export hubs. To enable MSMEs and traditional artisans to sell their products in international markets, e-commerce export hubs will be set up in public-private partnership mode. These hubs, under a seamless regulatory and logistic framework, will facilitate trade and export-related services under one roof. Measures for promotion of manufacturing and services. Internship in top companies. As the fifth scheme under Prime Minister's package, our government will launch a comprehensive scheme for providing internship opportunities in 500 top companies to 1 crore youth in 5 years. They will gain exposure for 12 months to real-life business environment, varied professions, and employment opportunities. An internship allowance of 5,000 per month, 5,000 rupees per month, along with a one-time assistance of 6,000 rupees will be provided. Companies will be expected to bear the training cost and 10% of their internship cost from their CSR funds. Industrial parks. Our government will facilitate development of investment-ready, plug-and-play industrial parks with complete infrastructure in or near 100 cities in partnership with the states and private sector by better using town planning schemes. 12 industrial parks under the National Industrial Corridor Development Program also will be sanctioned.
Veggie paper, no. Please, Patty.
Rental housing with dormitory type accommodation for industrial workers will be, just 1 minute. Rental housing, I repeat, rental housing with dormitory type accommodation for industrial workers will be facilitated in PPP mode with VGF support and commitment from anchor industries. Shipping industry, ownership, leasing and flagging reforms will be implemented to improve the share of Indian shipping industry and generate more employment. Critical mineral mission. We will set up a critical mineral mission for domestic production, recycling of critical minerals, and overseas acquisition of critical mineral assets. Its mandate will include technology development, skilled workforce, extended producer responsibility framework, and a suitable financing mechanism. Offshore mining of minerals. Our government will launch the auction of the first tranche of offshore blocks for mining, building on the exploration already carried out. Digital public infrastructure applications. Turning to the services sector, I propose development of DPI applications at population scale for productivity gains, business opportunities, and innovation by the private sector. These are planned in the areas of credit, e-commerce, education, health, law and justice, logistics, MSME service delivery, and urban governance. Integrated technology platform for IBC ecosystem. An integrated technology platform will be set up for improving the outcomes under the Insolvency Bankruptcy Code for achieving consistency, transparency, timely processing, and better oversight for all stakeholders. Voluntary closure of LLPs. The services of the Center for Processing Accelerated Corporate Exit, CPACE, will be extended for voluntary closure of LLPs to reduce the closure times. National Company Law Tribunals. The IBC has resolved more than 1,000 companies, resulting in direct recovery of 3.3 lakh crore to creditors. 3.3 lakh crore rupees to creditors. In addition, 28,000 cases involving over 10 lakh crore rupees have been disposed of even prior to admission. Appropriate changes to the IBC, reforms and strengthening of the tribunal and appellate tribunals will be initiated to speed up insolvency resolution. Additional tribunals will be established. Out of those, some will be notified to decide cases exclusively under the Companies Act. Debt recovery. Steps for reforming and strengthening debt recovery tribunals will be taken. Additional tribunals will be established to speed up recovery. Priority 5, urban development. Cities as growth hubs. Working with states, our government will facilitate development of cities as growth hubs. This will be achieved through economic and transit planning and orderly development of peri-urban areas utilizing town planning schemes. Creative redevelopment of cities. For creative brownfield redevelopment of existing cities with a transformative impact, our government will formulate a framework for enabling policies, market-based mechanisms, and regulation. Transit-oriented development. Transit-oriented development plans for 14 large cities with a population above 30 lakh will be formulated, along with an implementation and financing strategy. Urban housing. Under the PM Awas Yojana, Urban 2.0, housing needs of 1 crore urban poor and middle-class families will be addressed with an investment of 10 lakh crore rupees. This will include the central assistance of 2.2 lakh crore rupees in the next 5 years. A provision of interest subsidy to facilitate loans at affordable rates is also envisaged. In addition, enabling policies and regulations for efficient and transparent rental housing markets with enhanced availability will also be put in place. Water supply and sanitation. In partnership with state governments and multilateral development banks, we will promote water supply, sewage treatments and solid waste management projects, and services for 100 large cities through bankable projects. These projects will also envisage use of treated water for irrigation and filling up of tanks in nearby areas. Street markets. Building on the success of PM Swanidhi scheme in transforming the lives of street vendors, our government envisions a scheme to support each year over the next 5 years the development of 100 weekly hearts or street food hubs in select cities. Stamp duty. We will encourage states which continue to charge high stamp duty to moderate the rates for all and also consider further lowering duties for properties purchased by women. This reform will be made an essential component of urban development schemes. Priority 6, energy security, energy transition. In the interim budget, I had announced our strategy to sustain high and more resource-efficient economic growth, along with the energy security in terms of availability, accessibility, and affordability. We will bring out a policy document on appropriate energy transition pathways that balances the imperatives of employment, growth, and environmental sustainability. PM Surya Ghar Muft Bijli Yojana. PM Surya Ghar Muft Bijli Yojana. In line with the announcement in the interim budget, PM Surya Ghar Muft Bijli Yojana has been launched to install rooftop solar plants to enable 1 crore households obtain free electricity up to 300 units every month. The scheme has generated remarkable response with more than 1.28 crore registrations and 14 lakh applications, and we will further encourage it. Pumped storage policy. A policy for promoting pumped storage projects will be brought out for electricity storage and facilitating smooth integration of the growing share of renewable energy with its variable and intermittent nature in the overall energy mix. Research and development of small and modular nuclear reactors. Nuclear energy is expected to form a very significant part of the energy mix for Vikasit Bharat. Towards that pursuit, our government will partner with the private sector for 1. Setting up Bharat Small Reactors, 2. Research and development of Bharat Small Modular Reactor, and 3. Research and development of newer technologies for nuclear energy. The R&D funding announced in the interim budget will be made available for this sector also. Advanced ultra supercritical thermal power plants. The development of indigenous technology for advanced ultra supercritical thermal power plants with much higher efficiency has been completed. A joint venture between NTPC and BHEL will set up a full-scale 800 megawatt commercial plant using AUSC technology. The government will provide the required fiscal support. Moving forward, development of indigenous capacity for the production of high-grade steel and other advanced metallurgy materials for these plants will result in strong spin-off benefits for the economy. Roadmap for hard-to-abate industries. A roadmap for moving the hard-to-abate industries from energy efficiency targets to emission targets will be formulated. Appropriate regulations for transition of these industries from the current perform, achieve and trade mode to Indian carbon market mode will be put in place. Support to traditional micro and small industries. An investment-grade energy audit of traditional micro and small industries in 60 clusters, including brass and ceramic, will be facilitated. Financial support will be provided for shifting them to cleaner forms of energy and implementation of energy efficiency measures. The scheme will be replicated in another 100 clusters in the next phase. Priority 7, infrastructure investment by central government. Significant investment the central government has made over the years in building and improving infrastructure has had a strong multiplier effect on the economy. We will endeavor to maintain strong fiscal support for infrastructure over the next 5 years in conjunction with imperatives of other priorities and fiscal consolidation. This year, I have provided 11,11,111 crore rupees for capital expenditure. This would be 3.4% of our GDP. Infrastructure investment by state governments. We will encourage states to provide support of similar scale for infrastructure, subject to their development priorities. A provision of 1.5 lakh crore rupees for long-term interest-free loans have been made this year also to support the states in their resource allocation. Private investment in infrastructure. Investment in infrastructure by private sector will be promoted through viability gap funding and enabling policies and regulations. A market-based financing framework will be brought out. Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana, Phase 4 of the PMGSY will be launched to provide all-weather connectivity to 25,000 rural habitations, which have become eligible in view of their population increase. Irrigation and flood mitigation. Bihar has frequently suffered from floods, many of them originating outside the country. Plans to build flood control structures in Nepal are yet to progress. Our government, through the Accelerated Irrigation Benefit Program and other sources, will provide financial support for projects with estimated cost of 11,500 crore rupees, such as the Kosi-Michi intra-state link and 20 other ongoing and new schemes, including barrages, river pollution abatement, and irrigation projects. In addition, survey and investigation of Kosi-related flood mitigation and irrigation projects will be undertaken. Assam grapples with floods every year by the Brahmaputra River and its tributaries originating outside India. We will provide assistance to Assam for flood management and related projects. Himachal Pradesh suffered extensive losses due to floods last year. Our government will provide assistance to the state for reconstruction and rehabilitation through multilateral development assistance. Uttarakhand Uttarakhand too suffered losses due to cloudbursts and massive landslides. We will provide assistance to the state. Recently, Sikkim witnessed devastating flash floods and landslides that wreaked havoc across the state. Our government will provide assistance to the state. Tourism. Tourism has always been a part of our civilization. Our efforts in positioning India as a global tourist destination will also create jobs, stimulate investments, and unlock economic opportunities for other sectors. In addition to the measures outlined in the interim budget, I propose the following measures. Vishnupad Temple at Gaya and Mahabodhi Temple at Bodh Gaya in Bihar are of immense spiritual significance. Comprehensive development of Vishnupad Temple corridor and Mahabodhi Temple corridor will be supported, modeled on the successful Kashi Vishwanath Temple corridor to transform them into world-class pilgrim and tourist destinations. Rajgir holds immense religious significance for Hindus, Buddhists and Jains. The 20th Tirthankara Muniswarata temple in the Jain temple complex is ancient. The Saptarishi or the 7 hot springs form a warm water Brahmkund that is sacred. A comprehensive development initiative for Rajgir will be undertaken. Our government will support the development of Nalanda as a tourist center, besides reviving Nalanda University to its glorious stature. Odisha's scenic beauty, temples, monuments, craftsmanship, wildlife sanctuaries, natural landscapes, and pristine beaches make it an ultimate tourism destination. Our government will provide assistance for their development to Odisha as well. Priority 8, innovation, research and development. We will operationalize the Anusandhan National Research Fund for basic research and prototype development. Further, we will set up a mechanism for spurring private sector-driven research and innovation at commercial scale with a financing pool of 1 lakh crore rupees in line with the announcement in the interim budget. Space economy. With our continued emphasis on expanding the space economy by 5 times in the next 10 years, a venture capital fund of 1,000 crore rupees will be set up. Priority 9, next generation reforms. Economic policy framework. We will formulate an economic policy framework to delineate the overarching approach to economic development and set the scope of the next generation of reforms for facilitating employment opportunities and sustaining high growth. Our government will initiate and incentivize reforms for 1. Improving productivity of factors of production, and 2. Facilitating markets and sectors to become more efficient. These reforms will cover all factors of production, namely land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship, and technology as an enabler of improving total factor productivity and bridging inequality. Effective implementation of several of these reforms requires collaboration between the center and the states, and building consensus as development of the country lies in development of the states. For promoting competitive federalism and incentivizing states for faster implementation of reforms, I propose to earmark a significant part of the 50-year interest-free loan. Working with the states, we will initiate the following reforms. Land-related reforms and actions, both in the rural and urban areas, will cover land administration, will cover 1. Land administration, planning and management, and 2. Urban planning usage and building bylaws. These will be incentivized for completion within the next 3 years through appropriate fiscal support. Rural land-related actions. Rural land-related actions will include 1. Assignment of unique land parcel identification number, UL PIN, or Bhu Aadhaar for all lands. 2. Digitization of cadastral maps. 3. Survey of subdivisions, survey of map subdivisions as per current ownership. 4. Establishment of land registry. And 5. Linking to the farmers registry. These actions will also facilitate credit flow and other agricultural services. Urban land-related actions. Land records in urban areas will be digitized with GIS mapping. An IT-based system for property record administration, updating, and tax administration will be established. These will also facilitate improving the financial position of urban local bodies. Labor-related reforms. Services to labor. Our government will facilitate the provision of a wide array of services to labor, including those for employment and skilling. A comprehensive integration of e-Shram portal with other portals will facilitate such one-stop solution. Open architecture databases for the rapidly changing labor market, skill requirements, and available job roles, and a mechanism to connect job aspirants with potential employers and skill providers will be covered in these services. Shram Suvidha and Samadhan portal. Shram Suvidha and Samadhan portal will be revamped to enhance ease of compliance for industry and trade. Capital and entrepreneurship related reforms, financial sector vision and strategy. For meeting financing needs of the economy, our government will bring out a financial sector vision and strategy document to prepare the sector in terms of size, capacity, and skills. This will set the agenda for the next 5 years and guide the work of the government, regulators, financial institutions, and market participants. Taxonomy for climate finance. We will develop taxonomy for climate finance for enhancing the availability of capital for climate adaptation and mitigation. This will support achievement of the country's climate commitments and green transition. Variable capital company structure. We will seek the required legislative approval for providing an efficient and flexible mode for financing leasing of aircrafts and ships and pooled funds of private equity through a variable company structure. Foreign direct investments and overseas investment. The rules and regulations for foreign direct investment and overseas investments will be simplified to 1. Facilitate foreign direct investments, 2. Nudge prioritization, and 3. Promote opportunities for using Indian rupee as a currency for overseas investment. NPS Vatsalya. NPS Vatsalya, a plan for contribution by parents and guardians for minors, will be started. On attaining the age of majority, the plan can be converted seamlessly into a normal NPS account. Use of technology. We have successfully used technology for improving productivity and bridging inequality in our economy during the past 10 years. Public investment in digital infrastructure and innovations by the private sector have helped in improving access of all citizens, particularly the common people, to market resources, education, health and services. We will step up adoption of technology towards digitalization of the economy. Ease of doing business. For enhancing ease of doing business, we are already working on the Jan Vishwas Bill 2.0. Further, states will be incentivized for implementation of the business reforms, action plans, and digitalization. Data and statistics. For improving data governance, collection, processing and management of data and statistics, different sectoral databases, including those established under the Digital India Mission, will be utilized with active use of technology tools. New pension scheme. The committee to review the NPS has made considerable progress in its work. I am happy that the staff side of the National Council of the Joint Consultative Machinery for Central Government Employees has taken a constructive approach. A solution will be evolved which addresses the relevant issues while maintaining fiscal prudence to protect the common citizens. Budget estimates for 24-25. For the year 24-25, total receipts other than borrowings and the total expenditure are estimated at 32.07 lakh crore rupees and 48.21 lakh crore rupees respectively. The net tax receipts are estimated at 25.83 lakh crore rupees. The fiscal deficit is estimated at 4.9% of the GDP. The gross and the net market borrowings through dated securities during 24-25 are estimated at 14.01 lakh crore rupees and 11.63 lakh crore rupees respectively. Both will be less than that in 23-24. The fiscal consolidation path announced by me in 2021 has served our economy very well, and we aim to reach the deficit below 4.5% next year. The government is committed to staying the course. From 2026-27 onwards, our endeavor will be to keep the fiscal deficit each year such that the central government's debt will be on a declining path as percentage of GDP. I will now move to Part B. Indirect taxes. Sir, I start with GST. It has decreased tax incidence on the common man, reduced compliance burden and logistics cost for trade and industry, and enhanced revenues of the central and the state governments. It is a success of vast proportions. To multiply the benefits of GST, we will strive to further simplify and rationalize the tax structure and endeavor to expand it to the remaining sectors. My proposals for customs duties intend to support domestic manufacturing, deepen local value addition, promote export competitiveness, and simplify taxation while keeping the interest of the general public and consumers surmount. In Budget 22-23, we reduced the number of customs duty rates. I propose to undertake a comprehensive review of the rate structure over the next 6 months to rationalize and simplify it for ease of trade, removal of duty inversion, and reduction of disputes. I shall now take up sector-specific customs duty proposals. Medicine and medical equipments. To provide relief to cancer patients, I propose to fully exempt 3 more medicines from customs duties. I also propose changes in the BCD on X-ray tubes and flat panel detectors for use in medical X-ray machines under the phased manufacturing program so as to synchronize them with the domestic capacity addition. Mobile phone and related parts. With a 3-fold increase in domestic production and almost a 100-fold jump in exports of mobile phones over the last 6 years, the Indian mobile industry has matured. In the interest of consumers, I now propose to reduce the BCD on mobile phone, mobile PCBA, and mobile charger to 15%. Critical minerals. Minerals such as lithium, copper, cobalt, and rare earth elements are critical for sectors like nuclear energy, renewable energy, space, defense, telecommunications, and high-tech electronics. I propose to fully exempt customs duties on 25 critical minerals and reduce BCD on 2 of them. This will provide a major fillip to the processing and refining of such minerals and help secure their availability for these strategic and important sectors. Solar energy. Energy transition is critical in the fight against climate change. To support energy transition, I propose to expand the list of exempted capital goods for use in the manufacture of solar cells and panels in the country. Further, in view of sufficient domestic manufacturing capacity of solar gas, glass, and tinned copper interconnect, I propose not to extend the exemption of custom duties provided to them. Marine products. India's seafood exports in the last financial year touched an all-time high of more than 60,000 crores of rupees. Frozen shrimp accounted for about 2/3 of these exports. To enhance their competitiveness, I propose to reduce BCD on certain broodstock, polychaete worms, shrimp, and fish feed to 5%. I also propose to exempt customs duty on various inputs for manufacture of shrimp and fish feed. Leather and textile. Similarly, to enhance the competitiveness of exports in the leather and textile sectors, I propose to reduce BCD on real down-filling material from duck or goose. I am also making additions to the list of exempted goods for manufacture of leather and textile garments, footwear, and other leather articles for export. To rectify inversion in duty, I propose to reduce BCD subject to conditions on methylene diphenyl diisocyanate MDI for manufacture of spandex yarn from 7.5 to 5%. Furthermore, the export duty structure on raw hides, skin, and leather is proposed to be simplified and rationalized. Precious metals. To enhance domestic value addition in gold and precious metal jewelry in the country, I propose to reduce customs duties on gold and silver to 6% and that of platinum to 6.4%. Other metals. Steel and copper are important raw materials. To reduce their cost of production, I propose to remove the BCD on ferronickel and blister copper. I am also continuing with nil BCD on ferrous scrap and nickel cathode and concessional BCD of 2.5% on copper scrap. Electronics. To increase value addition in the domestic electronics industry, I propose to remove the BCD subject to conditions on oxygen-free copper, for manufacture of resistors. I also propose to exempt certain parts for manufacture of connectors. Chemicals and petrochemicals. To support existing and new capacities in the pipeline, I propose to increase the BCD on ammonium nitrate from 7.5% to 10%. Plastics, PVC flex banners are non-biodegradable and hazardous for environment and health. To curb their imports, I propose to raise the BCD on them from 10 to 25%. Telecommunication equipment. To incentivize domestic manufacturing, I propose to increase the BCD from 10 to 15% on PCBA of specified telecom equipment. Trade facilitation. To promote domestic aviation and boat and ship MRO, I propose to extend the period for export of goods imported for repairs from 6 months to 1 year. I'll read that again. To promote domestic aviation and boat and ship maintenance, repair and operations, I propose to extend the period for export of goods imported for repairs from 6 months to 1 year. In the same vein, I propose to extend the time limit for re-import of goods for repairs under warranty from 3 to 5 years. I now move to direct taxes. We will continue our efforts to simplify taxes, improve taxpayer services, provide tax certainty, and reduce litigation while enhancing revenues for funding the development and welfare schemes of the government. It has been our endeavor to simplify taxation. We have taken a number of measures in the last few years, including introduction of simplified tax regimes without exemptions and deductions for corporate tax and for personal income tax. This has been appreciated by taxpayers. 58% of corporate tax came from the simplified tax regime in the financial year 22-23. Similarly, as per data available till now, for the last fiscal, more than 2/3 have availed the new personal income tax regime. Comprehensive review of the Income Tax Act. I am now announcing a comprehensive review of the Income Tax Act 1961. The purpose is to make the Act concise, lucid, easy to read and understand. This will reduce disputes and litigation, thereby providing tax certainty to the taxpayers. I will also bring down the demand embroiled in litigation. It is proposed to be completed in 6 months. A beginning is being made in the finance bill by simplifying the tax regime for charities, tedious rate structures, provisions of reassessment and such provisions, and capital gains taxation. Simplification for charities and tedious. Two tax exemption regimes. The two tax exemption regimes for charities are proposed to be merged into one. The 5% TDS rate on many payments is being merged into the 2% TDS rate, and the 20% TDS rate on repurchase of units by mutual funds or UTI is being withdrawn. TDS rate on e-commerce operators is proposed to be reduced from 1 to 0.1%. Moreover, credit of TCS is proposed to be given in the TDS to be deducted on salary. Further, I propose to decriminalize delay for payment of TDS up to the due date of filing statement for the same. I also plan to provide a standard operating procedure for TDS defaults and simplify and rationalize the compounding guidelines for such defaults. Simplification of reassessment. I propose to thoroughly simplify the provisions for reopening and reassessment. An assessment hereinafter can be reopened beyond 3 years from the end of the assessment year only if the escaped income is 50 lakh rupees or more, up to a maximum period of 5 years from the end of the assessment year. Even in such cases, a time limit of 6 years before the year of the search, as against the existing time limit of 10 years, is being proposed. This will reduce tax uncertainty and disputes. Simplification and rationalization of capital gains. Capital gains taxation is also proposed to be hugely simplified. Short-term gains on certain financial assets shall henceforth attract a tax rate of 20%, while that on all other financial assets and all non-financial assets shall continue to attract the applicable tax rate. Long-term gains on all financial and non-financial assets, on the other hand, will attract a tax rate of 12.5%. For the benefit of the lower and the middle income classes, I propose to increase the limit of exemption of capital gains on certain financial assets to 1.25 lakh rupees per year. Listed financial assets held for more than a year will be classified as long-term, while unlisted financial assets and all non-financial assets will have to be held for at least 2 years to be classified as long-term. Unlisted bonds and debentures, debt mutual funds, and market-linked debentures, irrespective of holding period, however, will attract tax on capital gains at applicable rates. Taxpayer services. All the major taxpayer services under GST and most services under customs and income tax have been digitalized. All remaining services of customs and income tax, including rectification and order giving effect to appellate orders, shall be digitalized and made paperless over the next 2 years. Litigation and appeals. While our concerted efforts to reduce pendency of appeals at various appellate fora are beginning to show good results, it will continue to engage our highest attention. To dispose of the backlog of first appeals, I plan to deploy more officers to hear and decide such appeals, especially those with large tax effect. For resolution of certain income tax disputes pending in appeal, I am also proposing Vivad Se Vishwas Scheme 2024. Further, I propose to increase monetary limits for filing appeals related to direct taxes, excise, and service tax in the tax tribunals, high courts, and Supreme Court to 60 lakh rupees, 2 crore rupees, and 5 crore respectively. With a view to reduce litigation and provide certainty in international taxation, we will expand the scope of safe harbor rules and make them more attractive. We will also streamline the transfer pricing assessment procedure. Employment and investment. I have a few proposals to promote investment and foster employment. First of all, to bolster the Indian startup ecosystem, boost the entrepreneurial spirit, and to support innovation, I propose to abolish the so-called angel tax for all classes of investors. Second, there is tremendous potential for cruise tourism in India. To give a fillip to this employment-generating industry, I am proposing a simpler tax regime for foreign shipping companies operating domestic cruises in the country. Third, in India is a world leader in the diamond cutting and polishing industry, which employs a large number of skilled workers. To further promote the development of this sector, we would provide for safe harbor rates for foreign mining companies selling raw diamonds in the country. Fourth, to attract foreign capital for our development needs, I propose to reduce the corporate tax rate on foreign companies from 40 to 35%. Deepening the tax base. I have a couple of proposals for deepening the tax base. First, security transaction tax on futures and options of securities is proposed to be increased to 0.02% and 0.1% respectively. Second, for reasons of equity, I propose to tax income received on buyback of shares in the hands of recipients. Other proposals. To improve social security benefits, deduction of expenditure by employers towards NPS is proposed to be increased from 10 to 14% of the employee's salary. Similarly, deduction of this expenditure up to 14% of salary from the income of employees in private sector, public sector banks and undertakings opting for the new tax regime is proposed to be provided. Indian professionals working in multinationals get ESOPs and invest in social security schemes and other movable assets abroad. Non-reporting of such small foreign assets has penal consequences under the Black Money Act. Such non-reporting of movable assets up to 20 lakh rupees is proposed to be depenalized. Other major proposals in the finance bill relate to withdrawal of equalization levy of 2%, expansion of tax benefits to certain funds and entities in IFSCs, and immunity from penalty and prosecution to Benamidar on full and true disclosure so as to improve conviction under the Benami Transaction Prohibition Act 1988. Personal income tax. Coming to personal income tax rates, I have two announcements to make for those opting for the new tax regime. First, the standard deduction for salaried employees is proposed to be increased from 50,000 to 75,000 rupees. Similarly, deduction on family pension for pensioners is proposed to be enhanced from 15,000 to 25,000 rupees. This will provide relief to about 4 crore salaried individuals and pensioners. Second, in the new tax regime, the tax rate structure is proposed to be revised as follows. 0 to 3 lakh rupees, nil. 3 to 7 lakh rupees, 5%. 7 to 10 lakh rupees, 10%. 10 to 12 lakh rupees, 15%. 12 to 15 lakh rupees, 20%. And above 15 lakh rupees, 30%. As a result of these changes, a salaried employee in the new tax regime stands to save up to 17,500 rupees in income tax. Apart from these, I am also making some other changes as given in the annexure. As a result of these proposals, revenue of about 37,000 crore, that is 29,000 crore in direct taxes and 8,000 crore in indirect taxes will be foregone, while revenue of about 30,000 crore rupees will be additionally mobilized. Thus, the total revenue foregone is about 7,000 crores annually. Mr. Speaker, sir, with this, I commend the budget to this august House. Jai Hind.
Item number 2. Item number 2.
Sir, with your permission, I rise to lay on the table the following statements under Section 3 of the Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management, FRBM Act 2003. Medium-term fiscal policy cum fiscal policy strategy statement and macroeconomic framework statement.
Item number 3.
Sir, with your permission, I rise to move for leave to introduce the Finance Number 2 Bill 2024.
प्रश्न ये कि विधेयक को पूरा स्थापित करने की अनुमति प्रदान की जाए। जो सदस्य इसके पक्ष में हाँ कहें, जो सदस्य विरोध में ना कहें। मेरे विचार में निर्णय हाँ वालों के पक्ष में अनुमति प्रदान की जाती है। माननीय मंत्री जी, अब विधेयक पूरा स्थापित करें।
Sir, I introduce the bill.
Item number 4.
The Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir budget. Sir, I rise to present a statement, Hindi and English versions, of the estimated receipts and expenditure of the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir for the year 24-25.
सभा की कार्रवाई कल बुधवार दिनांक 24 जुलाई 2024 को प्राप्त 11 बजे तक के लिए स्थगित की जाती है।
All right, that was Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman presenting the Union Budget for 2024. Parliament has now been adjourned until tomorrow. The big headline coming out of the Union Budget 2024 is, of course, the new tax slabs. There is a new tax regime in place and new tax slabs have been announced by the Finance Minister. Income of rupees 0 to 3 lakh will be taxed at 0%. 3 to 7 lakh at 5%, 7 to 10 lakh at 10%, 10 to 12 lakh at 15%, and rupees 12 to 15 lakh at 20%, and above 15 lakh income will be taxed at 30%. However, Finance Minister has reiterated that salaried employees in the new tax regime stand to save up to 17,500 in income tax based on these changes. This is the big headline that is in fact coming in. Income Tax Act is going to be reviewed as well. The tax structure and the revised tax in the new tax regime has been laid out by the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. Angel tax has been abolished for all investors. This is a huge boost to the startup sector, huge boost to entrepreneurs, and of course short-term gain enhanced to 20%. It was 15% earlier. These are some of the big headlines that are in fact coming in. A new version of the scheme to end tax disputes will also be put in place. Capital gain tax will also be simplified, and TDS on e-commerce, etc. will be reduced. It's a relief that is coming in for people in the form of cheaper mobile phones and chargers and mobile equipment. Also, there are 3 new cancer drugs that have been put in the ambit of relief from duties, which means that there are 3 new cancer drugs now that will in fact the prices of those drugs will in fact go down. So these are some of the big headlines that are coming in. The duty on telecom equipment has been increased. This is of course one of the big headlines that is coming in as well. But a comprehensive review of the income tax is something that the Finance Minister has of course focused on right towards the end. We're putting out some of that information for you. This is the big headline that is in fact coming in. Apart from the fact that we will be simplifying the new tax regime and breaking that down for you in terms of what the budget means for you. Remember, there have been huge announcements that have been made for the states of Bihar and Andhra Pradesh. It is Nitish Kumar and Chandrababu Naidu who are after all in a government, in alliance to form this particular government. So coalition politics bearing its imprint on Budget 2024 as well. Let's quickly go across to NDTV's Prabhakar reporting from Patna. Prabhakar, over to you.
As everybody is glued to their television sets, we are at the office of the Bihar Industry Association. You can see happy faces out here. Almost a special package announced for the state of Bihar and huge funds allocated in terms of road infrastructure, power infrastructure and other infrastructure projects which Bihar had been demanding for long. So, seems, I mean, you have a smile on your face. This budget has brought good news for Bihar.
Yeah, definitely so. We have been given 26,000 rupees for roads, 25,000 crore rupees one thermal power plant in energy for Pirpanti, Bhagalpur, and there is 11,000 crore rupees for flood relief infrastructure, and I mean wherever there is something for that we have.
So it's almost a 60,000 crore.
We have asked for 50,000 crore rupees interest-free loan for 10 years. Government has, at the moment, they have suggested 1.5 lakhs crore for the whole nation. Out of that, our share will become about 15,000 crore. So I think not 50, but 15,000 crore in
So
that.
you have all the reasons to smile, sir.
Yeah, definitely so. Definitely so.
So I can see. I saw him clapping actually, sir. Well, I was talking to him. Sir, जो funds मिले हैं, जितने projects बिहार के लिए sanction हुए हैं, do you think that's good enough, sir? बहुत दिनों से बहुत
Fair enough. But we expect more. What we have given, we expect more. If you get more, people will be more rather pleased. This is my personal say to you.
So I would say you would never be satisfied. I mean, you have got 60,000 plus crore.
Nothing as satisfaction. As you get, people has more and more visibility. Yeah, but it's reasonable. Yeah.
So do you think it is because of the political equations you have with the center as of now that you are able to get such kind of funds?
Bihar deserves this, because without development of Bihar, development of India is not possible.
So making a very important statement here that अगर बिहार विकसित नहीं होगा तो भारत विकसित नहीं होगा. जो फंड्स मिला है आपकी उम्मीद से ज़्यादा मिला है. बहुत दिनों से हर बार बजट आप लोग बैठ के देखते थे. और another good news coming, राजगीर फंड्स, स्पेशल फंड्स, टूरिज्म फंड्स फॉर राजगीर एंड गया. आपको लगता है कि इस बार जो है झोला खोल दिया केंद्र सरकार?
इस बार ऐसा लग रहा है कि भारत के जो बजट बना उसमें बिहार को स्थान दिया गया है और लगभग 1 लाख करोड़ ये पहुंच जाएगा बिहार के लिए, जिसमें बिहार वासियों को जरूर पूरी खुशी तो नहीं, आंशिक खुशी जरूर होगी.
We have been demanding this thing for the last 10 years. We have always demanded that without money Bihar cannot develop. We need 1 lakh crore for next 10 years. 1 lakh crore every year for next 10 years. Unless that is invested in Bihar, Bihar cannot grow. Unless urbanization and industrialization takes place in Bihar, we cannot grow. Our per capita income is 50,000 right now against the national average of 2 lakh crore. 2 lakhs. So where are we? We are 1/4, 25%. So unless there is, it can be solved only by heavy investment. It's good that.
So do you think it's a good beginning?
It's a good beginning. Definitely, it's a good beginning. For the first time, I am seeing that 60-70,000 crore has been earmarked only for Bihar in this budget. This is a good sign.
All right, let's go right across to Vasudha Venugopal joining us live from Parliament at the moment. Vasudha, the big takeaways from the budget. What do you think are the big takeaways from the budget? Break it down for our viewers.
Hello everybody, we're coming to you from live from the Parliament, from outside the Parliament. Nirmala Sitharaman, the Finance Minister of the country, presented her historic 7th consecutive budget, and in fact she has announced quite a few measures. In fact, the focus was completely a lot on job creation, skilling, also on farms. She has also made this very important announcement that the government has proposed to abolish this angel tax that was to give boost to startups. She has in fact announced a comprehensive review of the income tax, and she said that she will make it concise and also easy to read, and she will also cut litigation out of this. Now, this exercise is expected to be completed in 6 months. The most important announcement, of course, is the fact that the government has also announced a huge, internship program that would employ about 1 crore youth, and they would be getting this opportunity for 12 months. It's a 12-month internship opportunities. 1 crore youth could benefit, and this would be done by 500 companies in association with the government. The companies would be, taking care of 12% of the internship costs, and they would also be bearing the training costs. How this is going to work out is something that we'll have to see. The government will be paying these youngsters 5,000 rupees per month, and of course 6,000 rupees would be the assistance that would be given. But of course the political messaging there is very important, because both Bihar and Andhra Pradesh have really gotten the best out of this budget, because 26,000 crore for Bihar and 15,000 crore for Andhra Pradesh is big, and this is also something that is in line with the demands of the JDU and TDP. My colleagues Vishnu and Maria are at CII to get you more reactions on this budget. Let's go to them.
All right, Vasudha, thanks very much. Hi, Maria. It's been an exciting hour plus. And what we're going to do now is just break down all of the key points over here. If you were to ask me what the two key thrust areas are as far as this budget is concerned, there is a lot as far as income tax is concerned. It may not make a very big immediate change to you in terms of tax rates, but there are efforts by the government to bring in or draw in revenue as far as a complete overhaul of the income tax system per se is concerned, number one. And number two, there is a lot which Nirmala Sitharaman has spoken about reskilling, employment, job generation. So these are the two key areas. Maria, I'll come to you in half a second, but the key point, and this is the one point that everybody wants to know about, am I going to be paying more? Am I going to be gaining? The new tax regime, tax slabs have been changed. The income of 0 to 3 lakhs is to be taxed at 0%, 3 to 7 lakhs at 5%, 7 to 10 lakhs at 10%, 10 to 12 lakhs at 15%, 12 to 15 at 20, and above 15 lakhs at 30%. So, Rajat, no great changes Vivek, no great changes over there per se, but in terms of the tax element and what the finance minister was hoping for, what is the takeaway?
No, so quickly stepping back, I think overall comment on the budget, it is very seldom. I think it's the first budget where I've seen where the economic survey and the budget have perfect harmony. The economic survey identified 4 main topics: employability, taxes, foreign investment, and green energy transition, green transition. And I think the budget focuses on all 4 in a very big way. To your specific question, Vishnu, on taxes, I think indicating a 6-month period for a comprehensive overhaul of the entire Income Tax Act is huge. There has been work that has been done on this in the past, but in 6 months to rewrite the entire act for a nation like India is not easy. She promises a lot. We'll wait to see what happens there. Capital gains tax rationalization is also a big one. I don't know.
Angel tax, that's the other one.
Yeah, so angel tax going away for a set of investors is clearly welcome. It's been a long-standing demand of the industry, especially with the startup universe flowering in India. We have to see the fine print to see what category of investors that exemption applies to. But on the capital gains side, I don't know. From the speech, it does appear that the 10% rate has gone up to 12.5%. Will this impact foreign investors? This is for long-term financial assets.
LTCG on financial and non-financial assets to be taxed at 12.5%. Capital gains taxation to be simplified. However, short-term gains on some financial assets to attract 20%. So that's a big increase, right?
No, so the short-term gain is actually a decrease.
Right.
In terms of the long-term rate, currently for non-residents and for listed stocks, the rate applicable is 10%.
Just hold on to your thoughts.
Yes.
A quick word also from KV Subramanian, who's joining us live. Thank you so much for your time. I mean, the big takeaway certainly would be about efforts being made by the government for bridging that skilling gap. What, according to you, would be the big highlights or headlines, as we say?
I think, Maria, this is a very visionary budget. There are many aspects. I think the rewriting of the income tax code, I was just hearing some of you talking. There is a report that was submitted in 2019. I was part of that committee that rewrote the direct tax code. And so, that has reduced, the draft tax code has been already written with provisions actually almost, reduced by half, and the number of pages also, much lower. So there is work actually be built upon, and that is why that promise of 6 months, I think, is a very credible promise. Apart from the angel tax and the vision for financial sector, I would actually focus specifically on employment, because to me, this is the first budget that has really, emphasized employment. And I think this is really critical, for our young country to ensure that the demography is actually converted into a demographic dividend. And the slew of measures that have been announced are based on, schemes that have already worked very well. If you would remember, the Atmanirbhar Bharat Rozgar Yojana had given incentives during COVID, both to employer and employee, and that had actually generated significant amount of, jobs, and across sectors. And I think the fact that it has worked, that is being, redoubled. Together with the internship program, I think the details of that internship program I'll wait to see. But I think overall the emphasis on employment is incredibly welcome, because this will also have significant impact on consumption. Because a formal sector job actually enhances, disposable income and thereby consumption, but at the same time will also lead to inclusive growth. So I think this is a very, welcome move. Overall, I think I find it a very visionary budget.
We've also got Mr. N.K. Singh joining us at this stage. Thanks, Mr. Singh, very much for being with us. We've had a bit of a chat as far as taxation is concerned. I'd like to focus a little bit more as far as job creation is concerned. For starters, there's a scheme for first-timers that's been introduced. There's an internship program that has been introduced. Also, 1.48 lakh crore is a provision made for education, employment and skilling. In terms of what has been announced and linking it to what the economic survey said, that we need to be generating a huge number of jobs every single year to sustain our economic growth, has enough been done?
So I think that I agree entirely that the budget is a very, very important, credible step towards the overall objective of a Vikasit Bharat, which is the overarching theme of this government. And I think that the issue of employment, linking up with apprenticeship, incentivizing corporates and incentivizing industry for higher employment-based activity, and linking up with the best international examples which are available of making apprenticeships now much more attractive, along with a slew of other measures, give a very credible thrust to the entire philosophy of how to make technology more compatible, adoption of technology more compatible with generation of new, fresh employment. So I agree that on the employment front,
but Mr. Singh, 80 lakh jobs, is that what the expectation is? 80 lakh jobs. Do you believe 80 lakh jobs can be generated on an annual basis?
I think so, because please read this in the light of a whole host of other measures, Vishnu, like the measures which have been announced in terms of restructuring agriculture and the very credible steps on restructuring agriculture, in making it more credible and aligned with the expectations on sustainable agricultural practices, to align them with the other kinds of fillip which have been given for attracting direct foreign investment, with giving support to the manufacturing sector, along with very employment specific. If you add all this, I think that the numbers which are quoted are certainly attainable. And I think that, Vishnu, we must not lose sight, although nobody has spoken about it. All this is being achieved continuing the path of macroeconomic stability and fiscal consolidation, which continues to be an important catalyst bringing about higher rates of sustainable economic growth.
And KV Subramanian, if I were to come back to you, the emphasis again on MSMEs, that credit guarantees for MSMEs, build in-house capabilities for MSMEs, again the SMA account for MSME in stress. Do you think all this is going to ensure that job creation that that the government is aiming for? A roadmap of sorts has been put out.
To the question that Vishnu asked Mr. N.K. Singh about the 80 lakh jobs that have been highlighted in the economic survey, I think it's important to put this in perspective. So I'll give you two facts to put this in perspective. Firstly, if we look at the CLEMS database, and the CLEMS database is an internationally recognized database, that is the database that the RBI report on employment has used, unlike the poor quality CMI database, which actually, is not reliable. If the CLEMS database, using that, the RBI has shown that 12.5 crore jobs have been created over the last 10 years, from 2014 to 2023. And, even if you want to...
एक इकोनॉमिक हब के रूप में उभर के आएगा और बहुत बड़ा इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर का काम अभी बिहार से लेकर के झारखंड, आंध्र प्रदेश और वेस्ट बंगाल, नॉर्थ ईस्ट का होने वाला है। और विशेष रूप से जो स्किलिंग के लिए और एम्प्लॉयमेंट जनरेशन के लिए जो अनाउंसमेंट हुआ है वो ऐतिहासिक है। और जितने कार्यक्रम चलाने वाले हैं और युवाओं के लिए रोजगार इससे उत्पन्न होने वाला है, ये देश का आत्मनिर्भरता के लिए बहुत बड़ा योगदान होने वाले हैं। साथ साथ में महिलाओं को अलग से जो स्कीम सपोर्ट देने का जो प्रावधान रखा है, ये बहुत ही सराहनीय है। और नॉर्थ ईस्ट में बैंकिंग को लेकर के, नॉर्थ ईस्ट में बैंकिंग का, खास करके पहाड़ों में, दूर दराज इलाकों में बैंकिंग सर्विसेज का थोड़ा सा कमी जो थे, वो भी इस बजट में वित्त मंत्री जी ने जो अनाउंसमेंट किया है, उससे नॉर्थ ईस्ट का फाइनेंशियल इंक्लूजन में बहुत जोरदार से मेन स्ट्रीमिंग होने वाले हैं। इसके अलावा 3 करोड़ आवास योजना गरीबों के लिए शहरों में और ग्रामीण इलाकों में घर बनाने वाला है, वो भी ऐतिहासिक है। और फिर मुझे लगता है कि प्रधानमंत्री जी का जो सपना है कि 2047 तक भारत को विकसित राष्ट्र बनाना है, इसका बहुत बड़ा शुरुआत आज के इस बजट में झलकता है।
लेकिन सर, ऑपोजिशन ये कह रहा है कि आपने अपने एली पार्टी को खुश करने के लिए क्या है,
ऑपोजिशन ने अगर ऑपोजिशन पार्टी ने क्रिटिसाइज किया, मतलब ये बहुत अच्छा बजट है, इसलिए वो निराश हो गए हैं। क्योंकि अच्छा बजट है, देश के लिए अच्छा बजट आया है, इसी से ऑपोजिशन पार्टी चिंता में है। बजट में आप बताइए, एक सेक्टर बताइए जिसको आपने नजरअंदाज किया, कहीं ऐसा नजर नहीं आता है। हर एक सेक्टर के लिए इस बजट में प्रावधान रखा है। खास करके ये ग्रोथ ओरिएंटेड बजट है, सब लोगों के लिए एक ड्रीम बजट है। आप टैक्स देखिए ना, कितना छूट मिडिल क्लास के लिए, सैलरीड क्लास के लिए, पेंशनर्स के लिए जो छूट दिया है, और कैंसर पेशेंट के लिए जो छूट दिया गया है दवाइयों के लिए, ऐसा बजट आज तक आपने कभी देखा नहीं होगा।
सबसे ज्यादा बात बिहार और ये आंध्र प्रदेश को लेकर हो रही है। बिहार में भी राबड़ी देवी जी ने बोला कि झुंझुना थमा दिया है, वहाँ पर स्थिति इतनी खराब है, मर्डर हो रहा है, ये हो रहा है। आप लोग जानबूझ के
बिहार में जो नेपाल से फ्लड आते हैं, उसको सिर्फ बिहार का प्रॉब्लम मत देखिए। बिहार में नेपाल से जो फ्लड्स आते हैं बरसात के समय में, तबाही मचते हैं, ये देश का समस्या है। इसको सिर्फ बिहार का समस्या क्यों बोलते हैं विपक्ष के लोग?
रिएक्शन,
ये बिहार
चाहिए या किसान की आय बढ़नी चाहिए,
वो तो joining us live from Bengaluru।
किसान के साथ संकट पैदा किया इन्होंने, बेरोजगारी इन्होंने बढ़ाई है। 10 साल में जो इतनी बेरोजगारी बढ़ गई, उसको कैसे कम करें, और वो भी आधी अधूरी नौकरी से। आप 2 साल की, 1 साल की या कुछ ट्रेनिंग करा करके नौकरी या रोजगार का सपना दिखा रहे हैं। देश का नौजवान अपना भविष्य बनाने के लिए पक्की नौकरी चाहता है, और फिर जो आधी अधूरी नौकरी है, क्या उसमें आरक्षण होगा?
All right, well, we can just go quickly across to Pratibha in Bengaluru. She's got reactions coming in. As we do that, I'd also like to just quickly introduce our panelists with us in the studio who've joined us. Salaried Singhal, Chairman Emeritus of PI Industries Limited. Thanks very much for being with us. And also Kamal Bali, Co-Chairperson of CII Europe and the Council. Thank you very much for being with us. He's also with the Volvo Group India Private Limited as Managing Director. But before we come across to them, let's go straight across to Pratibha, who's got a couple of reactions coming in. Pratibha, go ahead.
Well, I have with me two corporate personalities of the CII here in Bengaluru. Let me actually go across to them without further ado. What are your first thoughts? If you could also introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Rabindra Srikantan. I'm the Vice Chair for CII Karnataka. Good working budget, definitely. And the 9 areas of Viksit Bharat has been very well covered. Things like employment, skilling, MSMEs and agriculture have been addressed very well. I think this is a big positive. And also kind of reining in some of the current deficit has also been addressed. I think these are my first thoughts.
Right. And what about you, sir? If you could also introduce yourself. You hail from the education sector.
Yeah, I'm Sudarshan. I'm the Managing Director of EduTech NDTV. I also lead the Industry Institute Finance CII. For me, the budget, they have seemed to have addressed all the key challenges coming forward, especially coming from employment and skilling. There are a lot of good initiatives have been planned, including 20 lakh youth getting on the skilling central initiative. And the big boost is the internship. 1 crore people will get internship, and also which is the key problem for all the institutes to get good internships. So top 500 companies will offer, and also they get the funding support from the government, and also they can make use of the CSR funding. Apart from that, they have some skill loans enhanced up to 7.5 lakhs, and these are all some good trends which is very positive, and hope it will revive the employment opportunities for India, for the youth.
Are there any kind of challenges that you foresee as far as this budget is concerned?
We probably have to see the fine print and maybe a little bit more on the digital side, tech side, Gen AI. We were hoping to see more. Maybe it is somewhere in the whole R&D budget which was spoken about, so that we'll have to wait and see. Also, I think some of the challenges in terms of taxation, especially on the F&O and all that, we have to really see the repercussions and how savings money going to capital markets, how that is going to get affected. Some of the challenges we'll have to wait and see.
In fact, most of them from the IT, the tech sector, were talking about how they must be eliminating the angel tax. So do you see that as a good news here?
Yeah, very good news, eliminating the angel tax, and especially we from the Bangalore, the startup city. When we are in the CI meeting, it was taken with a good cheer, and I think it will also boost the startup, and also a lot of new initiative to promote the women entrepreneurship and also women skilling. So a lot of thrust has been given on the diversity as well. I think this will bring a good diversity into the ecosystem.
A lot of growth initiatives, a lot of pluses that most of them seem to see as well as notice as far as this budget is concerned. We'll have to work through the nitty-gritties once the actual work is there on paper, is the reaction that we pick up from Bengaluru. Back to you.
All right, Pratibha, thank you so much for getting us that reaction. Of course, all eyes will be on the reaction that will come from the tech sector, from the startups, and what do they have to say particularly about this first-timer scheme. I would like to know your views on that, because a lot of political reactions coming in, Mr. Salil, but your thoughts particularly on this first-timer scheme which is being introduced.
Well, let's be clear. A lot of us take a lot of first-timers. In fact, we go around universities, colleges, all over the place, looking for first-timers to groom them into our businesses. And I think this is an excellent...
So it's an internship program where the corporate has to pay, as I understand it, for them, and there is some sort of support from the government as well. But you don't necessarily have to hire them, presumably. But, the idea is exposure. Getting these young people a foothold into industry. So as a measure, when we're talking about skilling and reskilling, is this not a really important first step?
It is, and in fact, there is a very interesting part that this can be part of the CSR activity.
Right, yes.
So I think it's a great balancing and definitely a great incentive. I mean, it's not a big incentive, but it is a direction to take. And I think it's a great job.
The government's own estimate is that it will benefit 2.1 crore youth to begin with.
Estimates are estimates, but time will tell. But surely, I can tell you as industry, by and large, all of us are seriously concerned about the challenges of employment in our country. because that can lead to a lot of social unrest. And unless we can make that as an important part, and there are challenges within the industry in terms of automation, in terms of scaling up operations, where generally labor intensive jobs do tend to get mechanized.
Yeah.
So there is a, as I say, like in the financial world, they talk of the twin balance sheet problem. We have a twin employment problem. But having said that, it's very heartening to see the number of institutions which are now coaching youngsters, and a lot of things are happening. Many of us in the industry, let's go back historically. When the IT industry came through Infosys, what did they do? Their biggest challenge was people. But they invested in people, their training, and today the jobs are for the asking.
I just want to quickly go through the 4 main points of what we are talking about because I've got it listed. So internship in 500 top companies will be encouraged under this particular scheme, number one. Number two, 1 crore young people, youth, to benefit from this particular scheme. The internship allowance of 5,000 rupees will be allotted and a one-time assistance of 6,000 to be provided under the internship scheme. So I presume that 6,000 comes from the government.
Yes.
Right? So that's a cash incentive which goes to the corporate, or does it go to the first timer looking to get a foothold?
Good question. You'll have to read the budget.
So no, because otherwise it's a direct subsidy to the company to hire these people. So that needs to be looked at. Companies to bear the training costs from their CSR funds under the government's internship scheme.
My understanding was that for employment where the salary is less than 1 lakh rupees, it comes out of the subsidy, out of the EPFO contribution that would have been made by the employer.
Right.
So the government will probably use the
Yes,
corpus of the EPF.
So you get a rebate on your
So it
EPF.
says
That's
that,
what it appeared to be.
DBT to employees up to 15,000 will be done, and this will be applicable to those getting salary up to 1 lakh, as you pointed out.
So in some sense, it's a replacement of the apprenticeship act.
Yes.
With a subsidy and help from the
But
government.
it's more formalization of...
Absolutely.
No, that's...
I think it's a good direction to my mind.
But tell me, sir, since, as MD of Volvo in India, we didn't hear a word on the auto sector per se. What, 7% of GDP growth in this country is literally and figuratively driven by your sector. Were you disappointed, therefore?
No, actually, I think a lot is happening in the infrastructure area. So there is lots of focus on logistics improvement and lots of focus on energy transition. So if you look at the automotive industry, there are 2 drivers. One is we're going through a tremendous transition. We're going from current sources of the IC engines to renewable energy. So energy is very, very important. We are in the cusp of a very major transformation. So I think that's very good for the sector. Lots of focus on an energy transition which helps the automotive industry.
Right.
Second is logistics. Our logistics costs have been typically 14%, 15%. With all the initiatives which are happening, and especially in the northeast area,
The logistics cost will come down?
will come down to 8.
And are you willing to announce that you're going to pass that on to the consumer? We'll wait for the...
No, I think that gives a complete support to the ecosystem, the logistics ecosystem.
Okay, I'll just interrupt you now because we do need to take a short break. We'll continue looking at various sectors of the economy which have been impacted by what the Finance Minister has said in the Union Budget. That's up next.
लोन मिलेगा या नहीं ये आपके क्रेडिट स्कोर पे डिपेंड करता है। तो आज ही अपना क्रेडिट स्कोर चेक करें फ्री में पैसाबाजार.com पर। लोन की जरूरत कभी भी किसी को भी पड़ सकती है।
ठीक से एक्टिंग नहीं।
पैसाबाजार.com।
Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman announces Budget 2024, big focus on jobs and youth in the budget. Finance Minister opens purse strings for allies. Special package has been announced for Bihar as well as the new Andhra capital.
SOPs in new tax regime, no relief in old tax regime. A comprehensive review of Income Tax Act will be done. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman announced that the capital gains tax will be increased and that the angel tax on all investors is going to be abolished. Big announcement on the cancer drugs. 3 cancer drugs will be cheaper now. Duty cut has been announced on gold, silver and platinum. Mobile phones and chargers will also be cheaper. Hello and welcome. You're watching NDTV 24/7. My name is Kitty Behel. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman today presented her 7th straight budget, and big announcements have been made in the budget by the Finance Minister on the employment front. Jobs and skilling have been given the priority by the Finance Minister in the budget 2024. Rupees 1.48 lakh crore have been earmarked for jobs, education and skilling in the budget. Now, Nirmala Sitharaman has also announced key employment schemes. What has been the major headline regarding on the jobs front has been about the wages that will be provided to the first-time employees. Also, announcement has been made regarding internships that are going to be provided to the youth. 1 crore youth are going to be benefited with the internships and the opportunities that are going to be provided. Now, for the middle class, the announcement that has been made on the tax front is that no changes have been made in the old pension scheme, while in the new tax slabs, income up to 3 lakh rupees is not going to be taxed. Some changes have been made. If for income up to from 3 to 7 lakh rupees, 5% tax will be imposed. However, what we are learning at the moment is that the announcements now that have been made, there is no change that has been made in the old scheme. However, changes have been made in the new schemes. Now, another big headline that has come out from the budget 2024 is that big announcements have been made for Bihar and Andhra Pradesh. The allies have been given, the allies, that is the JDU and the state of Andhra Pradesh have been their announcements have been made for them. 26,000 crore for the state of Bihar, for the development of Bihar, and 15,000 crore for the development of new capital of Andhra Pradesh. Well, let's listen into what the finance minister said while making the announcements.
Recognizing the state's need for the capital, recognizing the state's need for a capital, we will facilitate special financial support through multilateral development agencies. In the current financial year, 15,000 crore rupees will be arranged with additional amounts in future years.
And now we are joined by RPSG founder and chairman, Mr. Sanjeev Goenka. Mr. Goenka, welcome to NDTV on this rather momentous day, I must say. In his 3rd term, Mr. Modi presents his first budget, or rather his finance minister presents the first budget. Your initial thoughts, Mr. Goenka, on the first budget of Modi 3.0?
It's a budget which is full of thought, driven by gravitas, and which lays the foundation for the Viksit Bharat plan that Modi ji had for 2047.
Why do you call it full of thought, Mr. Goenka? What's the rationale behind that?
Look at the planning that's gone behind it. It's about investment in agriculture, it's about investment in employment, it's investment in infrastructure, it's investment in skilling. It's about growth of the eastern part of the country, which is relatively less developed. It is about, the finance minister talked about making a comprehensive economic roadmap and economic policy for reform based on labor, land and capital. It's focusing on the Nari, it's focusing on the youth.
Mr. Goenka, you bring me to a very interesting point.
So what more do you expect in terms of thought?
Mr. Goenka, you bring me to a very interesting point. You said, about the development of the eastern region of this country, and this is a point that the Home Minister of the country, Mr. Amit Shah, Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, have stressed upon multiple times, not only during the election speeches, but generally also. They have said that unless the eastern bloc of this country develops, the nation cannot make full optimum progress matching the steps of all the regions. What do you think is one salient scheme? Of course, there are special schemes for Bihar, but one salient scheme, since you had such a large business in the eastern part of the country, you are one of the biggest business magnates from the eastern part of the country. What do you think is the one salient feature, Mr. Goenka, of this budget, which makes you think that it will certainly propel growth there?
I think it's a series of schemes rather than just one specific announcement. It's a whole heap of things. And I also look at what the finance minister has presented from a country's development perspective. She's talked of religious tourism. I mean, if you see that can be a huge contributor to the state's and the country's economy.
Mr. Goenka, you also have a large consumer exposure in your business. You have a large FMCG retail exposure in your businesses. Now, there is something that is obviously going to excite a lot of people, that is the younger generation, a huge duty cut in the mobile phones, etc. Other than that, what do you think in this budget? In this budget, there is that particular point which will excite the retail consumer market, because remember, we have been talking about tepid private investments and tepid market sentiment when it comes to retail offtake, particularly in certain rural segments of the economy.
I think this whole thing about skilling the youth and providing internships to 1 crore plus youth. So it gives them opportunities, it gives them income, it gives them money to spend on their hands.
So, Mr. Goenka, tell me something. Internship schemes have been tried in the past too. This time the scale is bigger. Do you think that this scheme can realistically answer the job crisis that this country, many say, have been facing? Modi government obviously has been saying that they have been dealing with that challenge upfront. But do you think this scheme has the potential in it to deal with that crisis in a cogent manner?
Absolutely. This is a beginning and this is not the end. So this is a start, and there will be, I presume, more of the same to follow.
So you say that this is a beginning, nonetheless a good, major, important beginning. And your closing remarks, Mr. Goenka, thank you very much for your time.
From the skilling perspective.
From the skilling perspective, right.
My closing remarks are very simple. Yeah,
please go ahead, sir. Please go ahead.
I'm optimistic about the Indian economy, and I'm going to invest heavily in India and the Indian economy.
Thank you, Mr. Goenka, there, saying that he's optimistic about Indian economy and he's going to invest heavily into the Indian economy. Thank you for joining NDTV. With this, we go to CII, where my colleague Vishnu Shom and Maria are joining us.
Thanks, Nikunj. Thanks very much. Chandrajit Banerjee of CII with us, the big boss at CII. Thanks very much for being with us. Was this well, we were all hoping for a big bang budget. Who doesn't? Let's face it, all of us do. Did this live up to your expectations?
No, there are areas where we saw that we have been talking about, which has been well addressed. One very important feature that I saw was, we must talk about it, is the macroeconomic fundamentals and the fiscal, all of that, keeping in mind that the government was a heavy spender on infrastructure, capex. So we see that fiscal prudence to be, and the macroeconomic indicators to be very strong factors going ahead. So that's one thing that was one looking for. Second, we all talked about employment, skilling. I don't think a budget ever had so much of emphasis on employment and skilling in the manner that it has been articulated in this budget. Three, we see trigger points basically where the participation of states, and we have been talking about how do we incentivize states, because how do we get reforms to be carried forward by states, and incentivizing states to do the next gen reforms is another very important key feature. And the fourth, of course, is on capex and infrastructure. The focus on rural infrastructure is a very, very, very key thing to see. And of course, and lastly, I would really talk about the the tax. I know that there are issues in the tax part, which you are digging into, but on the simplification side, on the direct tax, and this focus on decriminalization, bringing down
and rewriting the code in 6 months.
Yeah, phenomenal.
I mean, that's extremely difficult. You know, Mr. Bhutani was telling me. I mean, that the time frame itself, and the fact that they're willing to do it. I mean, that's quite something.
If you look at the history of the new tax code, it dates back to 2012. Substantial amount of work has been done. Between 2017 and 2019, even the draft code was ready. Thereafter, all the amendments, successive amendments in finance bills have been carried out to incorporate features of the new tax code. So I think the 6-month target for a new tax code, keeping in mind the objectives the finance minister set out, which is ease and readability of the law, weeding out old provisions of 1961 Act, in my view, is an achievable target.
Okay, Mr. Banerjee, would you say that this is a political budget? You know, the reason why I'm saying, and I have a logic to it, is that in the interim budget, the government focused on capex because there was a great degree of confidence with which they approached it, because they were confident about the numbers, they were talking about 400 par. This time around, they have tried to address concerns that resonated during the elections, the issues of unemployment, job losses, rural distress.
You know, all these are very, very key features to be high up in the agenda for any economy which is growing so fast, which needs to be a developed economy with a target in mind. You cannot have a section of the economy being ignored. So I think that besides politics of it, it also makes economic sense to focus on states, into rural, into the lower income brackets. All of that is pretty much important to carry. If you see the economic survey, which says that take everyone along in the economic growth story of India.
Yes. So that gap between the haves and the have-nots, or the gap between urban and rural India, that is being addressed. Something that we saw during elections.
That's true. It was a key issue, but the markets haven't taken to this very favorably, have they?
Hi, Vishnu. Yes, incidentally, you know, this was a bit of a surprise because we were expecting, of course, tax simplifications and rationalization on capital gains, which I spoke to Maria in the morning. But incidentally, they've increased capital gains in short term and long term. And the markets haven't taken very well to those. I must tell you both, we're down about 450 odd points on the Sensex. Nifty is about 150 points. But I think, you know, the fundamental point is that, you know, the budget overhang lasts not more than 48 hours. So fundamentally, medium to long term, capital markets are strong. The Indian economy is looking favorable to capital markets. And the other quick point is I think they've also done some tinkering with buyback on shares, right? And that is something which could be a little regressive in nature. Again, we are waiting to see the fine print. I'm yet to read it. I've been told there is some clarity which is emerging on that. But that can again, in the sense, has put some taxation angle in place to see that there is some stress there as well, which the markets are kind of showing up today, right? And the last thing I would say is that, you know, it's been a mix of between push towards manufacturing. They've talked about MSME, which is a very important sector in terms of employment generation multiplier. But you know what? We've seen these announcements in the past. Has the MSME sector actually been benefited? I think that the execution is a big challenge which remains, and that needs to be seen very evidently.
Sure. You know,
contribution to one last point, Vishnu, the contribution from MSME, which is manufacturing ideally, to GDP, is about 13% in India as of now. The target was about 25%. That number needs to be, has to go up considerably, and the execution lies within how they kind of play that out.
You know, there were three areas, Maria, I don't know if you noticed this as well, which we didn't see any mention of, or perhaps saw only a fleeting mention of. Health, education, and defense. Would any of you like to sort of take this question, Mr. Sinha, back with us? I wouldn't ask you whether you were disappointed, because there is so much in the budget, a lot of which the minister doesn't necessarily need to read. But we talk about Atmanirbharta in the defense sector. It's a big policy push. It has to be a policy push, but not one word, in her speech. And health and education.
So I want to just divide my comment into two parts. The one that I could follow and the one I have to study carefully. Because if you saw those 9 points, the first one was on productivity increase.
Yes.
And productivity increase I have to understand what there is on education and health. And there is a lot on skilling, if you saw the MSME. So it's difficult to comment when you're just hearing a speech. The things that I can comment on are 4.9%, big relief. Meaning I was actually not even expecting 4.9. I was thinking maybe it'll be 5. And then to go to 4.5. Now, if you think of it, 120% of our pre-COVID level is our GDP. And we are bringing down our debt faster. Both government debt and our fiscal deficit. And Standard & Poor's had already said that there's a positive outlook on us. We could actually get a better credit rating this way. And that would really change the tide totally. One of the biggest expenses on our budget is expense on interest.
Yes.
And if we can starting to tackle that, then you are really looking at it in a comprehensive manner.
What is the FY 2024, the present fiscal deficit?
4.9.
4.9.
So it's, it stays. FY 25 is 4.9%.
No, 4.5.
That's 4.5.
Next year it's coming down.
Right.
From 5.8 it was to have come down to 5.1.
And it's come down to 4.9.
4.9. That's a big deal, that's non-trivial.
Dr. Trehan with us as well. In fact, we were talking about health.
And,
Dr. Trehan, sorry, Maria. We keep talking about healthcare so often with Dr. Trehan. Were you disappointed that we didn't see any big bang announcements, at least not in the speech? I'm sure there'd be a lot in the fine print, but were you expecting anything?
Of course, we were expecting a lot, but it didn't happen.
What were you expecting?
So there are several parts to it. One, the allocation to the budget should be increased so that the public health system can be reinforced more. The other was the allocation to the different government schemes where the payment schedule can be enhanced so that, all the private hospitals are accepting schemes like CGHS, ECHS and all that. And there's basically a tightrope walk because of large outstandings. The budgetary allocations could be increased so that this catch-up can happen, because the hospitals, especially smaller hospitals, are suffering a lot because their payments are delayed, and then they are working on a very thin budget. So that's one. And the other thing is that there has been an outstanding issue of GST. We pay GST on all our inputs, but we don't get any credit for it. So there's no set-off. On the other hand, the government had placed 5% tax on room tariffs which are above 5,000. That also was no set-off. So
particularly the cancer drugs being cheaper, that would be of interest to the common man.
Yes, of course, that's a good thing. That's a very good thing, that cancer is actually one of the biggest challenges we have today, because the drugs are expensive, and if you add duty on it, it makes it even more expensive and unaffordable for people. As you know, cancer doesn't know any strata of society, so it could be affecting anybody, and especially the weaker section of society, come under a huge strain because these are long treatments and the drugs are expensive. Now, this will help, of course, but that's the only thing that has happened. Also, there is reduction of duty on X-ray tubes and flat panel detectors and things like that. But that's a very small sucker because the cost of care is actually going up because of the fact that a large proportion of our major equipment, like the CT scans, MRIs, and other things, the dollar value is only increasing. So the cost has gone up in the last 3 years hugely. So that's why there is always this mismatch that we as private healthcare providers are always trying to keep the cost to the patient as low as possible because that's what's required. But it's becoming incrementally challenging because no actually relief from the government has come in the last 2-3 budgets. And that's why I think that everything is getting stretched. So we were expecting that we would get some relief in view of the fact that the input costs, if they go down, we can pass it on to the patient. But what's happening is the reverse is happening, that the input costs are going up. So this is a very thin line now left.
So basically hospitalization in private hospitals, in your case, the basic costs would go up.
Definitely.
Right?
See, the
cost of medication, room costs, and of course labor costs.
All input costs like electricity, all these other things are going up. So with all the stresses on delivery of healthcare, if help could come from the government, even if GST was set off like for everybody else, we could actually make some provision for the future. Yes. But it's not happening, although requests...
And we didn't hear much even on Ayushman Bharat. I mean, the much touted celebratory scheme of the government. They did not talk much about it either this time around.
Yeah, I was a little surprised because over there was this expectation that the scheme would be actually enlarged to cover more people, especially the idea of elderly people, 70-year plus, or even 65 plus, because that would help them a lot. And the second thing is that the allocation for the funds for the scheme have not been enhanced, at least in the budget.
Yeah.
Maybe otherwise that would happen. So these are things that can happen to help the common man.
Yes.
And
perhaps more needed to have been seen. Now, I'm just interrupting you for a second. We've got a couple of reactions coming in from Bengaluru at this stage. Pratibha, it's across to you.
I'll make them introduce themselves, don't worry.
2 minutes introduction for all of us. 4 minutes.
I come to you from the Karnataka chapter of the CII. I have with me corporate personalities from this sector. And so starting with you, what are your first thoughts with respect to the budget, and if you could also introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Sam Cherian. I'm the panel convener of MSME CII Karnataka and chairman of Chevron Laboratories. And I think this budget is quite encouraging for the MSMEs. That's my first take.
Right. The chairman of CII Karnataka, what are your first thoughts, Mr. Venu?
Yeah, hello, thank you very much. This budget, it talks about, one is the continuity, other one is, it takes care of everybody, and more focus and thrust is on employment generation, skilling, and MSME focus, as my colleague said. And on top of that, it also agriculture and other things. It will create a multiplier effect over a period of time in that. So this budget has a lot of scope for the innovation, skilling, etc. in that. And that is, in my view, it has got a multiplier effect over a longer period of time in that.
We are also coming to you from the tech city, the Silicon Valley of India, and you come from the IT industry. So what are your first thoughts, and please introduce yourself as well.
Rabindra Srikantan, I'm the Vice Chair for CI Karnataka and Managing Director for ASM Technologies. So from a tech, holistically, not just IT, if you take solar, semi, mobile phone, tech and so on, I think definitely a lot of good initiatives, especially on the skilling and so on. And some of the things they spoke about on R&D and the budgets for that, definitely very welcome. We need to see if there's something in it for AI, Gen AI, digitization. Maybe it's all in the fine print. We need to go through and see what has been provided for those initiatives. But definitely good for our sector because we need a lot more people and definitely constant skilling.
Also good news when it comes to education and employment, right? You come from the EdTech sector. Please introduce yourself and your thoughts.
Yeah, I'm Sudarshan. I'm the Managing Director of EduTech NDTV. Also lead the CI Industry Institute panel. So overall the budget is very positive, especially on the skilling. As you know, India, though we are talking a lot of skilling, only 5% of the youth enrollment into the skilling domain or vocational education compared to other advanced countries, which is about 40 to 60% enrollment. I think this skilling initiative of 20 lakh to youth scheme and also the internship scheme will benefit more youth enrollment into skilling. I think that is going to make our manufacturing industry and other industries strong when it comes to Make in India and further developments.
Well, when it comes to the challenges, what are the challenges that you foresee?
Yeah, the challenge is always, from the policy standpoint and policy to implementation. So how easy to implement those things is always a challenge. And the second aspect is that, you look at on the capex standpoint, while the central government is continued with almost 3.4% of the GDP, and they also allocated almost 1 lakh crore for the states to do that. So how the states will really take advantage of these things would be also, because if you really look at on the capex side, what is important that we need to have a national highways and also airports, ports, etc. But also important that the states also have the state highways, and those things also need to be built. And this is a very good initiative from the budget standpoint, providing the allocation to states utilize that. But the challenge is that how the states would do those kind of things in that.
Well, implementation is definitely a question mark there. But when it comes to the tech sector and the startup industry, there were two main demands that were laid out. One was the elimination of angel tax, and the other was to make it an industry-friendly tax assessment of sorts. Do you see both of these as good news? Do you see what is your assessment of it?
Definitely, both are very positive news for the tech industry. And just to also mention all the skilling and what has been announced, if it is aligned to the AI, which is the next wave, where they really know people, and it's such a new industry, I think that will really get India to a leadership position in the world.
The absence of anything for the health sector, do you see that as something that was missing, disappointing?
Not really. The finance minister has given some thrust on the cancer care related thing. That's a good beginning, actually. There is nothing which is, you can't do everything all of a sudden. The beginning is very good.
When it comes to filling the employability gap, do you think that these initiatives would definitely address that of sorts?
Yeah, I think what this time they have done, they have made industry inclusiveness. They want more industry participation than pushing the people. So I think the industry involvement has been increased, I think, which will address the skill gap in the coming years, I guess.
There you have it, the pluses and minuses that have been laid down by the Karnataka's chapter of CII there. Back to you.
Thank you, Pratibha, for getting us that reaction from Bengaluru. Let's listen in to all the political reactions that have come in from the Parliament. Soon after Finance Minister presented the budget, a lot of MPs came out and gave the reactions. Let's listen in.
भारत को आपको बधाई है। अखिलेश जी सारा फोकस बिहार और आंध्र प्रदेश को ही दे देगा। ये इसलिए है कि अगली सरकार बनाने के लिए वित्त मंत्री जी का ये बजट इंटर्म बजट है, लेकिन हर एक क्षेत्र में, चाहे अधोसंरचना हो, चाहे शिक्षा हो, चाहे सिंचाई हो, एक नई सोच विचारधारा के साथ भारत को अग्रसर करना।
There was very little addressing of the inequality in our situation in our country today. Very little done to give reassurances to all of us who have been worried about the failures and limitations in this government's economic approach. You know that as far as development is concerned, there was no mention of public health expenditure, no mention of education expenditure, all of which should have been increased significantly.
आपको बधाई है। अखिलेश जी, सारा फोकस बिहार और आंध्र प्रदेश को ही दे देंगे। ये इसलिए है कि अगली सरकार बनाने के लिए इससे बड़ा पैकेज उन प्रदेशों को दे। और उत्तर प्रदेश के लिए? उत्तर प्रदेश ने प्रधानमंत्री दिया, और क्या चाहिए उत्तर प्रदेश को?
That is quintessential Akhilesh Yadav these days. Vishnu, interestingly, they have been doing a lot of jugalbandi. We have seen a lot of coordination play out between Akhilesh and Rahul Gandhi inside Parliament. But yes, let's come back to the CII panel.
I think Nasir Salim had a point to make. Firstly, fiscal deficit at under 5% is welcome news. But you had a second key point as well.
Yeah, no, so 2 points there actually. One is that, the fiscal deficit is 4.9%, which is looking good. And that will bode really well with the overall rating upgrade that India may see now over the next few quarters from the international markets, which will also attract a lot of foreign flow in.
Yeah.
So one is that. The second thing, quick one, is from the sectoral perspective. I think post the budget, I would like to touch upon one sector which now looks a little more stronger, which is the entire consumption piece. With deductions increasing, Maria, we spoke about this in the morning, from 50 to 75,000 rupees, it's gone up. So the middle income group will tend to benefit on some more disposable income available to them. Also, the extension limit of long-term capital gain from up to 1 lakh to now 1,25,000 will leave them with more disposable income. So some, numbers.
So those in lower income brackets would tend to have more disposable income, is what you're saying.
Yeah, because we're seeing a lot of participation now in, listing.
And that could be up to 75,000 rupees more annually.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that will bode well with consumption, and also, they've given some tax rebates on mobiles and certain other consumer discretionary products, which may also bode really well. So that hopefully should play out.
Would you like to come in? Has enough been done to drive private consumption?
That's really not my subject, but if you allow me, I'd like to speak on infrastructure.
Go right ahead, sir.
So there is a very big, I think a lot of people have missed a very big message embedded in yesterday's economic survey and today's budget speech, which is that for 10 years, this government has followed a happy and consistent macroeconomic policy of driving GDP growth by very large outlays in infrastructure and public expenditure. And that was, in fact, touted as pump priming economic growth. So in the last few years, we have seen infrastructure outlays increase by 25 and 30%, 5.5 to 7.5, 7.5 to 10. And the expectation this year was that in the first year of a new government full of energy to again embark on new things, that we would